the union, like, we are the players on the field. So at the end of the day, it's what we want, and protections what we can get, and we're only as strong together.
Which side are you on? Which side are you on?
We've got Ryan Cave. He is an executive for the United Football Players Association. It is the union for football players in the U.S. Football League. Ryan, thanks for taking the time to talk to us today. I appreciate it.
Thanks for having me this morning.
Yes, thank you so much for hanging out. I know that you're a busy fella, and you mentioned on the phone yesterday that you're actually a former professional football player yourself, and you were part of the union.
Yes, I was in the Arena Football League for 10 plus years up in Canada, a little over a year up there as well. So I've been a part of sports associations, sports unions for my whole entire professional career. So just being a part of this with the USW and the UFPA, what we've done to get the players in the USFL, great collective bargaining agreement is it's amazing for those guys, and looking forward to a great year too with them.
Absolutely, and I'm pretty happy with the CBA that you described to me yesterday. You said that the ratification vote was 100%. Didn't have a single person vote no, which is pretty amazing. But before we get into that, I guess I wanted to start off with some background on the U.S. Football League. When did that league start?
So the USFL was back in the 80s. They were back then, and they rivaled the NFL for a little while in the springtime, and then they kind of had their demise when they kind of went to the fall, when Donald Trump kind of took them kind of to the fall, and they really didn't pan out against the NFL back then. But then they came back. Fox Sports actually bought the league and decided to give it another run in the springtime. A couple former guys of mine who spearheaded this, Kenneth Farrell and Nick Temple, and also Jake Payne. Those guys played in the old AAF and the old XFL that Vince McMahon had owned at the time, and those leagues still exist. And they didn't make it through COVID, and then besides that, the guys really wanted to make sure if another spring league came around that they were in the forefront and make sure the players had what they need. So they kind of brought me over from the Arena Football League Players Union when we ceased operations before COVID. And it was just like a match made in heaven. We planned things out for a little over a year, 2 years. And then when it was time, when the USFL finally came around, and we were boots on the ground and getting things going for guys. And a lot of guys already knew that they didn't want to have the same reoccurrences that happened in those other former leagues. They knew they wanted the protections, and we were able to get them organized. And everything else is history.
And so some of those other leagues, they were not unionized. Is that what I'm hearing?
No. So spring football in the whole has never been unionized. Besides the Arena Football League, and they've been around for 25 plus years off and on. So
and so what were some of the issues that some other spring players in spring football leagues faced that they weren't unionized? What were some of those issues that these players wanted to make sure that they kind of nipped this in the bud?
So guys, really, you run into a lot of problems with workers' compensation. You run into a lot of problems with housing. Some of the leagues ran into problems with funding. So making sure guys had those adequate protections, the rights to second medical, the proper equipment, everything from temporary housing, because, the guys won't make, what the NFL guys make, obviously. Right. But, for a guy looking to carry on his professional career on the football field, the next 3 to 5 years, the lifespan of football players isn't long anyway. We just want to make sure guys have the protections in place. So those guys were just looking for, like, hey, if I'm going to do this for the next, these leagues pan out 3-4 months over the year, I want to make sure we have the protections in place just in case something happens, because it's a dangerous sport. So you need to have those protections in place.
Absolutely. And so, because these folks, sounds like they were pretty familiar with the history of spring leagues and some of the abuses that players faced. And so they pretty quickly, unionized after this league was started back up again. And what was that vote count? I know that it was pretty lopsided, but do you recall the vote count off the top of your head?
Now off the top of my head, I want to say it was like 3-1.
Yeah, it seems like I'm remembering something like that. So very, the players were able to win their union very handily, and so I'm sure that played a large role in negotiations when y'all were at the table with management. Management knowing that that the union had such high support among the players, among the workers.
Yeah, so the thing with, when you're organizing these guys, a lot of these guys are young. So a lot of these guys are fresh out of college. So they don't know what a players association is besides what they've heard with the NFL. So a lot of guys it was more so educating the guys. So once you educate them and give them the knowledge, then the rest of it's history. So, you rely on the older guys who are part of the league to educate the younger guys. And that's why, when we ratified the contract, not one person voted it down. It was 100%, because, once guys get educated, like, hey, we need this because, there is a chance that at the end of the day, when you're dealing with labor and you're dealing with management on the other side, you're going to run into your problems. Football players and sports in general is no different. So, once guys realize that and they realize their worth, because they're the product on the field.
Right.
Without the players, none of this, nothing happens, nothing works. So, having them, realize those facts and everything like that, we feel as though we got a great fair deal for the first contract. And, the sky's the limit from there.
Yeah, and so let's talk about that first contract.
Before you do that, Jacob, I was just going to say real quick that I think one of the really cool things about your story you're sharing right now is that there are folks listening who this resonates in their workplace, and they're doing something very, very different than playing professional football, right? Whatever job they have, they're running into the same dynamics of the older guys got to educate the younger folks, right? A lot of folks coming into the workplace, without that knowledge of a union and what a union can do for them and what not having a union means for them. So, I hope folks listening can take that away, that whatever labor you're doing, whether you're, out working in construction, you're in an office, like the federal employees we spoke of earlier this morning, or you're doing something, a little outside the box, you're actually playing professional sports for a living. As you said, your labor, there's management, there's going to be conflict. You need to have each other's back. And so I'm really, really excited to hear this about the USFL union. I can't wait to watch some USFL games and know that I am cheering on my union brothers on the field. That's really cool to me as a football fan. I just had to say that before we get on track.
Yeah, man. It's at the end of the day, once the guys realize, like, hey, the union, we are the union, the players on the field. So at the end of the day, it's what we want, and protections what we can get, and we're only as strong. We're only as strong together. So once guys figured that out, everybody bought into it.
Absolutely. And and you said that the opening games are going to be on April 15th, and the schedule isn't out yet, but there's probably going to be a game in Birmingham on that day on April 15th. And so once we get that schedule and the timeout, I told you that we might talk to some of our sisters and brothers in the Labor Council over in Birmingham and see if we can't get a big group of union folks over there to cheer y'all on your first game. So we'll definitely be keeping in touch with y'all and keeping the conversation flowing. But yeah, let's talk about this contract and what were y'all able to get in this contract.
So some of the main things that guys faced in year one was with it being every team. So USFL has eight ball clubs, and all of them are to kind of make the league more sustainable, which Fox did, was they brought everybody to Birmingham, and they did one centralized hub city for the first year and building it out from there. Year two, we had 4 hub cities, but for this year, for year one, it was It was one hub city. So guys, ran into some issues down there with, over 400 players being in one, city. And Birmingham isn't, great city. It's not the biggest place. So, guys ran into some housing issues there, facility issues, problems there with, practice times and meetings and what have you not. Just typical things you run into with building out a league in year one. But guys' main things they really wanted to go after was a little bit more compensation, housing, because they had to take care of their own housing for 3 months, and then having to deal with housing in a different city, and then having your own personal situation wherever you're from. That's an added cost, an added burden. Yeah. So guys really wanted to kind of attack the housing, and then more medical protections for guys. So those were the three main bases that the bargaining committee really wanted. So once we were able to get into bargaining and talk with the league, they really went after those three things, and we were able to get I think it was a 17 or 18% increase for active players. The inactive rosters went up to, I think they were about 60% increase. If don't quote me, I don't have the deal right in front of me, but they went from inactive went up about $1,500 bucks. So they brought their total compensation for active players to around $60,000 for 3 months, and then they also have a housing stipend that the league provided for them. So guys will be able to go out and get their housing in their city. So the 4 hub cities this year are Birmingham, Canton, Ohio, Detroit, Michigan, and Memphis, Tennessee. So they will be in those 4 cities. And they will be afforded housing there from the league and the stipend. So guys will be able to get their own housing. The medical protections also were a huge gain. Guys have the right to second medical workers' compensation in those particular states, because as you know, some states don't look at professional football players as workers. So they don't provide, like in Florida, they don't have workers' compensation for professional sports players. So those teams and those teams in those states will have to, the league will have to get the policy somewhere else. Each team has those, great policies in place, and they have right to second medical and whatnot. So just those added protections are really big gains. Guys have travel bonuses. Travel reimbursement stuff to and from camp. They have per diem. There's certain working hour restrictions on a work day. So guys just don't get beat up. Certain practice times, what you can do during practice, what you can't, how long guys can be on the field. Like I said, there's no difference between a football contract. It's just knowing what goes into detail into a football. What is a work day, or what does a work schedule look like for a football player? So once we got those things hammered out, like I said, the deal was great. Everybody, the board, the player reps had their input into it, and once they recommended it to the entire bargaining unit, the players knew they had a great deal on the table. It's a 3-year deal with a 1-year opener after each year. So players will be able to go back and get more things and each year. So it's an overall great deal for both sides. And Fox was actually a willing dance partner for us. So once we won the election, they were forthcoming, and they really wanted to get something done and move forward. I will give Fox their due with that. They were forthcoming, and they were they're a great partner to have.
Well, that's good to hear as well. And that gives me just another reason to feel good about this league coming on board for sure.
Yeah. And I was really impressed by the and maybe it's maybe I shouldn't be so impressed, but by the $60,000 for 3 months of when the league is on is so important, because even though they're only playing games for 3 months, right, they've still got to work for the league the whole year, even if they're not getting compensated for the whole year, because they've got to stay in shape. They've got to, make sure that they're still practicing and all of this stuff. And so even if they're doing some other jobs the rest of the year, they still have to maintain that. And so that is work. That's labor that they're having to do for this. And so to have a reasonable salary, $60,000 in a year as a base, I think that's a really great starting point as this league gets kicked off, and hoping to see it go even higher. But then those worker protections as far as safety and workers' compensation goes, because football is it's a full contact sport. It's like very, very, there's a very high risk there. And so the idea that you wouldn't have something like a workers' compensation would be ludicrous. And so those are very important protections, I think.
Right. And you're dealing with the medical protections. We all saw another Union brother, DeMar Hamlin, with the Buffalo Bills go down. Mm-hmm. So having that, we have emergency medical action plan in place, concussion protocols, and all of that good stuff we have in the contract as well. So, you see firsthand what it can do, and it saved the life. So having those same protections afforded to the players, whether they're in the NFL or USFL, XFL, or what have you, it is great to have. So,
yeah. Ryan, do you think that there's anything that you wanted to make sure we touched on before we let you go?
Man, like I said, we're just looking forward to a great year two in the USFL. Like I said, it was a great win for the players. The league is a great football. It's a great football for anyone who's an avid football fan looking to want to watch some great football in the springtime. Like I said, there's 8 ball clubs all around the U.S. in those 4 different hub cities. It's a great talent on the field. Around 40 guys got invited to NFL camps. I believe around 10 guys ended up sticking the whole season. 1 guy was named All-Pro, the kick returner for the Dallas Cowboys, Turpin. He was the MVP of the USFL last season. So, like I said, there's a great product on the field. Tune in. They're going to be on Fox Sports, NBC. So they play primetime games on Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays. And if you're in town, I'll be around in Birmingham. I'll be around in the different hub cities. And like I said, if anybody has any questions, you can always reach out to me on all social media. Plandos Ryan Cave. You can search me. Big Cave 68 on Instagram. Ryan Cave on Twitter. So I'm out there. But like I said, I'm grateful you guys having me on. I'm looking forward to doing this again sometime.
All right, brother. Look forward to meeting you in Birmingham sometime. Thanks for coming on. Ryan Cave, executive for the United Football Players Association, affiliated with the United Steelworkers. Thanks again. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks, man. Yeah, I really enjoyed that. I'm excited for USFL. Seriously, that's some awesome stuff. I know we've talked on the show a little bit about athletes and some of the exploitation they face as workers in a really unique situation, putting their body on the line. And we've talked about organizing in the minor league baseball league, for example, and some of the contract issues that took place with Major League Baseball. So love to see my love of sports and my love of labor unions intersect.
Yes.
So yeah, this keep the sports labor content coming. I'm always down for that.
You just saw a clip from the Valley Labor Report. We are live every Saturday morning from 9:30 a.m. till 12:30 p.m. And we pride ourselves on keeping all of our content free to everybody so that we can talk to as many working folks as possible. If you support the work that we're doing, you think that it's important, you think that it's good, then consider making a monthly contribution to the project, and you can do that on our website, tdlr.fm.